Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of your favorite aquarium podcast on planet Earth, the best there is, and we will fight you on that if you don't believe that. We've got an exciting episode today. At least I think it's going to be. Might be a short one because it is a topic that I don't know how deep we can go into it, but we're going to give it a shot. Jason, what are we talking about? What is this this fascinating topic we've got today?
We're going to be talking about dreamfish and why, well, you and probably myself will never have our dream fish, and there's really good reasons why. And you might not either, especially if you like the same types of fish we like. And so I'm excited to kind of hear about why we can't have these very special fish in our lives.
Well, you know what? You just said something that you and I might fight here. We might get into a very heated debate because you just said there's very good reasons why. I don't know if I can agree with you on that. I think the reasons why are terrible. I think it's stupid that we can't keep these fish, but I mean, I kind of do understand. I just don't like it, and I'm biased, and I have for my entire life I've wanted to keep this fish. I don't know if you have an example of what your fish that you will never have is, but for me, it is no surprise. It is the Asian Arowana. You and I are both very fortunate to live in the United States, but we're also unfortunate in that for some reason, we are not able to have the most beautiful fish in the aquarium hobby in our aquariums. I don't fully understand. I'm going to try to make myself understand. But this is a fish that's eluded me since 1993. I don't know how you feel about it, or if you have a different fish that you've never been able to keep and probably never will.
Oh, I've definitely got a different fish. My fish will eat your fish.
Oh.
And it's cooler.
Okay.
Yeah, I've said it. I've said both things. My fish will eat your fish, and it'll look cooler doing it.
You are coming in fighting today. I like it. It's good.
I am a big fan of the snakehead. There are absolutely phenomenally colored snakeheads out there, the Channa genus, and they are, as is the Asian Arowana, well, you can't have them as a pet in the United States, at least for the most part. And every time I see these fish on YouTube from creators that are not living in the U.S., I'm just like, wow, you want to talk about personality and color and feistiness. And that fish, I saw a video the other day. There was a cat on the top, sitting on the top of a fish tank, and there was a snakehead in there. And didn't like the fact that the cat was up there and jumped out of the water and bit this cat in the face and tried to eat it. You got a fish that tried to eat a full-grown cat. Now the cat, lucky enough, was able to somehow get out of this fish's death grip and basically eject itself from the top of the tank.
Okay, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. It ended in an okay manner. I don't want to, all you cat lovers out there, don't worry. The cat survived.
I was going to say, my wife is going to listen to this. I'm just saying.
And so yes, the cat wound up being okay, but
Good.
It's an awesome fish. It really is.
I cannot disagree with you there. In fact, I think you have too, but I've had a snakehead before. And it was a very cool fish. It was a long, long time ago. In the mid 90s, I had one. I think I had to drive to the state of Maryland to get one, but that was before all the hubbub with snakeheads happened, where, there was all of these newscasts about them walking on land and, everybody freaked out over them. It was so long ago, I don't recall how I got it or where I got it from. But again, I think I had to drive to Maryland to get it. But yeah, I mean, but see, it's a different scenario though, because I don't like it, but I halfway understand why snakeheads are not allowed in the hobby. It's kind of ridiculous to me that snakeheads aren't allowed, but fish like red-tailed cats and arapaima are. That doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, there's stories of arapaima swallowing human beings. Like, okay, those might be fantasy scenarios, but it's out there. I mean, I don't know if any of those stories are true or not, but regardless, a fish that can get 14 feet is perfectly fine to take home and put in your 150-gallon aquarium. But a snakehead, no, that doesn't make sense.
So while you were talking, I did a little bit of research. So the arapaima, here's why I think they allow arapaima to be sold, which is insane and something we are going to deal with in a future podcast coming up here really soon. Their temperature range is 77 to 84. And so unless you are way south in the United States, the fish just simply can't survive. In most of the lakes, they would just all die, right? So they would never get very big. If you accidentally put one in, like where I live in Illinois, you throw one in a river or something like that in a lake, it's going to, first of all, those rivers and lakes might not even ever get that warm. And if they did, they would be that temperature for so little time that they would die very, very quickly.
So they don't have the issue with people releasing them and then they grow to 14 feet and swallow small babies that are swimming in the beach. Okay.
Where the issue with the snakehead, as I'm looking it up, their temperature range is this. Wow. This is crazy. So they've got, just looking this up on the internet, depending on the species now, one of them, the Argus species, can go from 32 up to 86, which is basically all water all over the place in the entire world.
Wow.
And then the Marulius, slightly warmer, 72 to 82. So that one, it's going to be a little bit more finicky, but still, like you said, at least with the snakeheads, I guess we can just address that one first because you had mentioned it. They are very adaptable. And so they're invasive. They're found all over the East Coast, which is why I think you probably were, I never had one. So I think that's probably why you were able to find one, because they're all over the place. Problem is, once they got out into all these lakes and all that kind of stuff, as I've already alluded to, they're super aggressive. They're destroying ecosystems. They eat all the smaller fish, so all your bluegill, all that stuff. They will take on small to medium-sized bass. It's just, they become pretty much this eating machine. So like you said, you can kind of understand, okay, well, we really don't want these things in the aquarium hobby because depending on the species, they could pretty much take over most aquatic ecosystems in the United States. And I don't know, I haven't really kept up with it. Maybe I should have before we started doing this podcast. I don't know what their range is, and I'll look that up while you're talking later. But I don't know what the snakehead range is in the United States right now.
Range as far as size, you mean, or
where
they're from?
Where it's inhabiting. So right now, and again, I'm just doing this on the fly because this is a podcast. So it's saying in the U.S., northern snakeheads are established in a wide area: Arkansas, Maryland, New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Although they've been also seen pretty much everywhere. So California, Delaware, Florida. I didn't know they were in Illinois, Massachusetts, North Carolina, New Jersey. So most states, especially with the species that are cooler water. Now, I don't know, and I don't know if you know either, if you were to catch one in the wild, could you put it in an aquarium? I'm leaning towards no. I'm leaning towards that's not something you're able to do, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, you're probably right. You're probably not supposed to. But in your 51 years, have you ever heard a story of somebody knocking on someone's door and say, hey, we're here to check and see what fish you have in your aquarium? Like, I don't think that's happening either. So whether you're supposed to, you're supposed to drive 55, but a lot of people set their cruise control to 60. So, at least I do. I'm an old timer. But are we supposed to? Probably not. But I think people probably still do. And I don't think that I've never heard that story of somebody flashing a badge. Hey, we're here to see, we heard you have a snakehead. We've launched a full investigation. So, but I think that, okay, go ahead.
I'm just going to be Google man today. All right. So in this podcast, we're doing a little different today. I'm going to be Google man. According to Google AI, it says, no, you cannot simply catch a snakehead and put it in an aquarium because, one, transporting them across state lines is a federal offense.
Holy crap.
And most states prohibit their possession. So, yeah, that could be bad. And it's just, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, as we go on, but we already have enough problems with certain entities wanting to create white lists. In other words, here's a list of fish you can keep, and if it's not on that list, you can't keep them. And we've been fighting that now for the last 5 or 6 years. It keeps periodically coming up in federal legislation. We don't need to be making this problem any worse just by illegally keeping a fish that you're not supposed to keep, and then running the risk of having this white list thing become more of a priority in Congress.
Yeah, I think the sad thing about it, I mean, it's of course it's absolutely true. A snakehead that was born in the wild and is raised in the wild can wreak havoc on an ecosystem. But I think that probably the main reason why they're a problem for the aquarium hobby is the reverse of what we're talking about here. It's those people that are releasing them into lakes that are just populated with, like you said, bluegill, bass, and they're overtaking that. That's why they're the snakehead. Now, I'm going to talk about the Asian Arowana. That's nothing even close to this scenario, which is good. It's a different thing, but that's why we're not able to keep them in glass boxes, is because people are idiots and make those mistakes. You know, releasing fish into the wild has always been the wrong thing to do, especially if it's a fish that was bred in captivity. Now, if you're Project Piaba, or if you're one of these organizations that's breeding fish to replenish the ecosystem, which that's not what Project Piaba is doing, but you know what I'm saying. If you're trying to do that as a what's the word? Why am I drawing a blank on the word? It starts with an S. Come on, help me out here, Professor. Who cares? You are replenishing the stock to nature, like a sanctuary. Is that the word I'm looking for? You're trying to breed them so that they can be released and replenish that stock in the wild.
Okay.
Of course, that's a different scenario. But
Yeah.
some dummy that has a 55-gallon tank that puts a snakehead in there because it's cool, you know, like I did when I was 19, and then takes it and releases it into their neighbor's lake that's full of bluegill. That's why we can't have these, not because people are replenishing natural habitats. But and that sucks. I mean, it sucks that people are that way. There's problems with plecos, with other catfish, things like that. And like us old timers say, well, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because with the snakehead, it's human nature. A lot of people, they get a fish, especially these aggressive. You're not keeping anything in an aquarium usually with snakeheads. It's usually a solo fish because of the aggression. Although I have seen videos of people overseas who have kept multiple snakeheads together. I don't know. I've never kept one. I don't know enough about them in terms of their husbandry, like their, how you keep them properly to know, are there tank mates that are suitable? But the problem is, usually the answer is no. And then you got this fish that's taking up a large aquarium all by itself. And the nature for human beings is, I'm sick of this thing. Mm-hmm. Nobody else wants it, because nobody else wants a single large fish that's going to take up an 8-foot tank. And so what do you do with it? You take it and do exactly what you said. You dump it in a pond or a lake or a river, and now we've got bigger problems. It's not the end of the world if one person does it, because it can't reproduce. Where we have the issue is when you've got, a half a dozen people do it, and they wind up finding each other, falling in love, having children, and now you've destroyed an ecosystem. And because of the temperature range is so wide for some of these species, you're not stopping that once it happens. It's kind of like the Asian carp situation, totally different, unrelated. It's not to the aquarium hobby, but they've taken over in Illinois river systems, and these things get massive, massive. Some of these carp, I've seen them. My sister-in-law used to have a place right off the shore of Lake Michigan, and there was a rather large creek that kind of ran off on the side, and I saw some carp there that had to be 4 feet long. I mean, they were absolutely huge, at least 3 feet. So you mentioned things like plecos. I think we've all seen those videos where you look at, was it the Colorado River, where they had thousands of plecos, and they're burrowing in the sides of rivers. They're destroying the riverbanks. Nothing really easily eats them because they're fairly heavily armored, and they have their fins often have the spikes that stick out. So That's a mess. You go down to Florida, and now you're just as likely to catch an Oscar or a peacock bass as you are any of the Florida native fish.
Hmm.
Everything lives down there practically. So I mean, if you're buying tropical fish down there and you put them in any kind of a waterway down there that's fresh water, they're going to probably survive just fine. And then you more or less destroyed that ecosystem. So I get it
Yeah.
with the snakehead.
Yeah. And I remember I did a video that was not about snakeheads, but it was a video that included snakeheads. I think it might have been my video where I said these fish should not be in the hobby, but it was kind of a play on words because a lot of the fish that are on that list I've kept and currently am keeping. But there was news broadcasts about snakeheads that were from way back in the 90s. And I believe they even had, maybe still do have, like a reward system. If you catch one and you make it no longer alive.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're allowed to say on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, that's probably
You
the best way.
Yeah, you can receive like a reward for that. I don't know if that's happening now, but that was happening during that whole panic over these earthbound alien creatures that were eating small children. I mean, which I'd never heard a story about snakehead eating a small child, but I'm saying there was a huge panic, and I remember that happening. Like I remember seeing it on the news in the 90s and being like, oh my God, wow, these fish are taking over the world. It was wild. And that's probably why I bought one. I was really dumb back in the 90s. Not a whole lot has changed, but at the end of the day, we are talking about a fish that's really, really cool. They're called snakeheads for a reason. They're one of the most cool looking, just like you see it and you're just like, oh, that's so cool. You know, it take your breath away how cool they are. They're not beautiful. They're just really cool. At least the ones that I've seen, which are brown and, you know, they're not fancy colors or anything like that. It's not that they're just like this strikingly gorgeous fish. It's just that they're really, really cool. They look like a snake. So
The ones that are the blue and red ones are some of the most beautiful freshwater fish I've ever seen. Like
okay, see, I'm not familiar with those.
So I would challenge everybody watching the podcast today as we're talking about it, because we always get comments. Why don't you put pictures of fish in the podcast? So can we address that just for 1 second while we're talking
course.
about this?
I'm glad you are. Yeah.
Because so first of all, John does all the editing. I don't do the editing. I do other things like I keep up with the comments and do all that stuff. When we were doing short form, I would do that. But all the editing falls on his shoulders, and he's a very busy dude. He's got the business, he's got his own channels, and he's got all this other stuff to do. To go through an hour to an hour and 15-minute long podcast and start plugging in pictures of everything we're talking about, I get it. It would be nice, but at the same time, it takes this podcast where, you know, editing it is still something we have to do, but then taking it to the next level and being like, all right, this is a very significant portion of a day. It's just not practical because it's a podcast. You know, we want people to be able to listen to it audio. If you want to watch the video, that's fine, but just listen to it. So that being said, if you would like to see a snakehead, go on this thing called Google and type in it's CHANNA. I think that's how you spell the genus, or just Chana snakehead, and you will begin to see some pictures and some video of some of the most beautiful fish you'll ever see. They're awesome. Now, you're right, though. A lot of them are like a tan or a brown and kind of silvery. Those, when I'm saying I wish I had it's my number one bucket list fish. There are very few fish on the face of this earth where I would be like, okay, I've got an 8-foot tank or maybe a very large 6-foot tank, and I'm willing to dedicate that entire space to one fish. There is only one fish on earth that I would do that for, and that's this one. But I can't, and I am not willing to have a federal offense or break the law or have the state come knocking on my door, especially with, you know, everything that we have here and just in the principle of it. I don't want to do that and then have you just push
That
legislators
worry.
into doing things that we already don't want them to do. So, but
Yeah.
holy cow, they're gorgeous.
I'm not trying to break the law or anything. You know, I'd do anything for you, but I think you could find one. I think you could find snakeheads. I mean,
I'm
I
sure
don't know.
because apparently they're in Illinois. So, you know, you catch one, but I'm just
All you
mad
got
at
to do
that.
is go fishing. You'll find one.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, again, on the flip side of that, I was a police officer for 5 years, federal, and so I have a little experience. I never once ever ran into somebody that was carrying a cooler with a fish in it. But I would imagine, and I could be totally wrong here, but I cannot imagine a scenario where a state trooper, an Illinois state trooper, pulls somebody over on the turnpike and says, what you got? I could absolutely see them saying, what you got in that cooler right there. But when they open it up and say, it's a fish, I would see the state trooper look at it and say, okay. Because they're looking for there to be something else in that.
Like a head.
Right.
We got that cooler.
Right.
It's a head.
What's in the box? But
the head of what?
You know,
you don't want to know, sir. It's best you just let me go.
Just let it go.
Ever seen the movie Seven?
Yeah. Her beautiful head. Anyway, I just can't imagine a scenario where they say, okay, what's in the cooler? They open it up. It's a fish. Okay. What kind of fish is that? Let me make sure it's not on this list. Like, maybe I'm wrong. I can't imagine that that's actually happening where you would probably run into a problem. And where I would run into a problem is neither you or I would tolerate the idea of having a fish like that and not showing it on our YouTube channel.
How could you not?
Right.
I have the coolest fish that nobody can have. Check it out.
I'm going to be honest with you. We're gonna transition eventually into Asian Arowanas. I have been offered Asian Arowanas before. I'm not going to tell you who. I'm not going to tell you where, but I have had sources that could get me one. And I'm just like, no, I mean, I wouldn't get one and then be like, I'm worried that I'm going to get that knock on the door. I wouldn't worry about that. If you want to arrest me for that, then I'm going to be real embarrassed when I'm in there with all of the other inmates and they're like, what are you in here for? Yeah. But I'm not worried about that part of it as much as knowing it would be absolutely impossible for me to finally get a fish that I've wanted since 1993 and not show it on YouTube. I'm that dumb. And then all of a sudden word starts to travel and, when drama happens on YouTube, everybody goes crazy. And next thing you know, people are calling the authorities. Hey, you should go. He's got this fish. It's illegal. I understand I'm probably overreacting there, but I can't help but feel like that kind of thing would happen. So this is part of the reason why I say I'll probably never have this particular fish that is the one on my list. But there is hope. And I want to talk to you about that as we go on here. But to transition into mine, again, I've said it multiple times, it is the Asian Arowana. Now, to pretend that our listeners don't know what this fish is, I'm sure you know what a silver arowana is. That's from the Amazon, and they are my favorite fish. That's not called Oscars. That the reason why I favor silver arowanas over Asians is because I can get them. But my fish that I've always dreamt of is the Asian arowana. It is very different from the silver arowana. They don't get nearly as long, but they look, as far as their body shape, they look the same as silver arowanas. They're just a little bit more stout, and their fins are a little bit more compact. And they have the most striking colors you've ever seen. These are fish that are probably similar to the koi trade in that you can find them, not for us because we're not allowed to have them, but you can see them for sale like in Asia and stuff like that, in Canada, for $35,000-$40,000 for some of the super reds. They are a fish that are, dare I say, looked at as sacred in some cultures. They're a symbol of good luck and all of this kind of stuff. So this is a very prized fish with lore surrounding it that would be similar to the Japanese koi. But the reason why we can't have them is the thing that I've I've never and still don't particularly understand. And since we are being Googlers today,
Oh, I've got it already.
okay, well, I've got an article pulled up here too. Let me read my thing and then you can get into it. I went to everyone's favorite resource of information because you know that it's everything that's on this website is 100% accurate, and that would be Wikipedia. You thought I was going to say Google. There is a page specifically for Asian arowanas talking all about their the cultural beliefs, their habitat, where they're from, all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to read this particular part about conservation. And I'm not a terrible reader, but if I say words wrong, don't make fun of me too much. Asian arowanas are listed as endangered by the current IUCN Red List. The most recent evaluation taking place in 2019, international trade in these fishes is controlled under the Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna, or CITES. I've always called it CITES, CITES. I'm not sure. People can call it cities. You can call it CITES. It doesn't matter. I call it CITES. Under which is placed in Appendix I, the most restrictive category in 1975. It's one of the only 8 fish species listed on Appendix I. A number of registered CITES breeders are in Asia, and the specimens they produce can be imported into several nations. Other nations restrict or prohibit possession of Asian arowanas. For example, the United States has listed this species under the Endangered Species Act, so it cannot be kept in the country, in that country. This is the kicker here, Adams. Without a permit.
Yeah. True.
Declining habitat is a major threat. For example, Asian arowanas are now uncommon in the Malay Peninsula, where they were once widely distributed due to environmental destruction. Inclusion in the IUCN Red List was originally based on not on biological reasons, but on practical ones. Though widely distributed throughout Southeast Asia, they've been harvested heavily. I want to say that again. They've been harvested heavily by aquarium collectors. However, habitat loss is likely a greater threat than aquarium collecting. And the article is probably 4 more paragraphs, but I don't think it's necessary to keep reading that. But what do you have? Does your article say anything different?
Yeah, mine's got a nice summary. And so basically the summary is for the Asian arowana. Again, it's a beautiful fish. Imagine a silver arowana, like John said, a little bit smaller, a little bit pudgier, gorgeous red color. If you want to see one, I don't know if you've got any video of Asian arowanas. I do. Really, really good video of an Asian arowana that I was able to film at the Wonders of Wildlife Museum. I think I called it, like, it was a 16,000 gallon South and Central American tank, but for some reason they had Asian arowanas in there along with the silvers. So I just had a bunch of different arowana in there, and I'm pretty sure there was an Asian in that one. And I got some really nice close-up video of that. But basically, it doesn't matter. In the United States, they will not allow the import even from the approved farms. Canada, you've got a little bit more leeway there, as long as it's crazy what they're requiring in Canada even. So you have to get it from an approved farm. It has to have a birth certificate, a certificate of authenticity, and then it has to be microchipped for identification. So that's something new. I'm like, who's the microchip person? It's like, hey, what's your job? My job is to microchip Asian arowanas. That's what I do. I'm a microchipper.
What a cool job.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, hopefully they're microchipping other things besides just Asian arowana. It's like they've got one every 6 months. Okay, call me back when you need another one. Yeah, it's at least there is a mechanism there. And with the Asian arowana, what's nice is there's hope, right? Because it's not like the snakehead. The snakehead, that is never going to be a legal thing because we're worried about invasiveness. We're not worried about that so much with the Asian arowana. What we're worried about is their natural habitat being destroyed. So in theory, one would think if you could get enough people successfully breeding these fish, which I'm sure is a possibility. And you could build up their numbers to sufficient quantities and show, hey, you know what? We can breed thousands of these things. Maybe, just maybe, someday you will have your fish.
Well, but here's the thing. I've been saying that since 1993. And apparently, this has been a thing for 46 years. 1975 is when they restricted them. So, and I agree with you 100%. And in fact, that's the thing that baffles me. The United States, I did a very quick Google, and I don't know how accurate it is, but according to Google, it did say that the United States has more privately owned aquariums than any other country in the world. I know there's a lot of people with aquariums and all throughout Asia, Europe too. I mean, but I kind of expected this. I kind of expected the United States to be the leader, but according to Google, we have more home aquariums than any other country. So if the problem is that you want to ensure that we keep these strains of fish going, because there are, you mentioned the red, there's greens, there's golds, there's a lot of different colors of these fish. The red is just without question the most bold and the most sought after of all of them, at least to my knowledge. You would think though, if you want to get people breeding these and expanding them, what better place is there than the United States? Because let me tell you something, the moment they make these fish available to the United States, instantaneously there's going to be about 40 Asian Arowana breeders in the United States, if not more than that. So if you want to expand them and you want to save this species, why wouldn't you allow us to get them? I'm not saying I would become an Asian Arowana breeder, but there's so many farms out there that would be looking like, oh, you mean I can breed these fish and then sell them for $1,000 a piece or more? Sign me up. I mean, it would be an instantaneous industry in the United States just breeding Asian Arowanas. So it baffles me. And again, 46 years you haven't been able to figure this out. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's like I see them everywhere online. Yeah. In countries that are not the United States.
Right.
Our good friend Joey, a mutual friend of ours, Joey Mullen, King of DIY, has one. And I've known him since 2013. I've always been so jealous of him for being able to have it because he lives in Canada. And I had a conversation with him probably a year ago, and we were talking about this, and I was just like, man, I'm so mad at you because you have one of those and I can't have one. And he's like, well, I know how you can get one. He's not the one that was offering to sell me one earlier, by the way. He was like, I know how you can get one and how you can do it legit. And I'm like, tell me. He said, well, get the permit. You're an educator. You're on YouTube. You are, you might not be a conservationist, but you're an educator. You're going to use that fish for the same purposes that a public aquarium would. So get the permit. And I was like, oh my God, you're opening my eyes to this. I'll check it out. And I looked into it for like a half an hour and I was just like, I don't even know what to do. I don't know how to get this permit. But it's something I probably will look into again when I think about it. Now that it's fresh in my mind, it'd probably be soon, but I don't know if I'd ever be able to pull that off, but that would be amazing to actually do it legit and be able to get one. That would be, I know how silly it sounds, but it would literally be a dream come true for me to get one of those. It would just be a matter of deciding which color.
So as you're talking, I'm trying to look up, okay, is there a permitting process for people in the United States? And I'm not finding it. I mean, only zoos and public aquariums with so special permits can possess Asian arowanas for conservation or research purposes. So, yeah, man, I think I've never really looked into it, but my gosh, it's not easy to do. And what's interesting, I was looking at the Appendix I or Appendix 1 of the other fish that are on this list. There's a lot of sawfish I saw. There's an Atlantic sturgeon, so there's a lot of saltwater fish in there. But with this one, there's not a lot out there in terms of getting the permit. I mean, holy cow! I'm sure it's involved, and probably costs a decent amount of money too.
Yeah, I mean, and then you still have to buy the fish, and you know, you know, don't even have any doubt about it. If that was ever to happen for me, there would be a brand new tank. It would be set up exclusively for that fish. There would be nothing else in it. It would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 500 gallons. Hey, if I'm getting a dream come true, I'm putting it in exactly the right scenario that it should be. It's like buying a Lamborghini and not putting it in the garage. I mean, of course I would set up something specifically for that, which would be 10 grand. And then you got to buy the fish and you got to get all the permits. I can't imagine that something like that would happen. But if there's a way to do it, I can promise you I'll try. I'll take money out of my retirement account to get one of those fish. Since 1993, I've fantasized about owning one of these fish. I mean, good luck stopping me. If there's a way, good luck stopping me. But I just don't know. I don't know that I'd ever be able to do it. And a funny story, because you may have seen the same one. There's only one Asian Arowana I have ever seen in person in my life. And it was in your neck of the woods. It was in Shed.
Oh, okay.
And it was a nightmare. It looked terrible. It looked like it had just gotten savagely beat up by something else. It was kind of hiding up in the corner. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't even know for certain that it was the Asian Arowana. It was just kind of up there hiding, and it just looked all gnarly and beat up. And the little card on the bottom said Asian Arowana. And I was like, man, I'm finally getting to see one, and it looks like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of disappointing.
That's you have, huh?
Yeah. But I've talked to Joey. Like, I've actually considered going to Nova Scotia, not to see him, but just to see his fish. And someday maybe I will do that. I don't know. But Nova Scotia is not terribly far away, but I don't have a passport. I don't know how to do all that stuff. Yeah. But just to be able to see Joey's fish would be awesome, to be able to do that. But I don't know. I mean, it makes me mad because I literally had conversations with fish store owners in 1993, and they were like, "Oh, it's only a matter of time. We're going to be able to get them real soon." Because I've always talked about it.
Years later.
Yeah, I've always talked about it. The silver arowana is what attracted me to this hobby. And then the store owner was like, if you think that's nice, look at this. And he showed me Asians, and he was telling me, we're going to be able to get them soon. And so I've dreamed about having them ever since. Yeah. And here we are 32 years later, still nothing.
So, all right, here's the question. So you can't have the Asian Arowana. You've had the silvers before, but is there another fish that would be a bucket list sort of fish that you haven't had that would at least be possible to own?
Arapaima.
Okay.
We got to go back to that episode that you and I did where we talked about if money was no object and we set up whatever aquarium we wanted. It would have to be something like that. It would have to be a predatory fins style, the size of a building. Because if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So I'll never have one. I'm not saying I can't. I could go to the store today and get one.
Sure.
But I won't do it unless I can do it right. So that would probably be the one for me, just because it's so ridiculous to have a fish that could get, over 10 feet long. So yeah, that'd be the one for me. What about you?
That's the thing. People have asked me this before. It's like, what bucket list fish do you want at this point? I'm like, besides the snakehead, which is never going to happen, I really can't think of something where I'm like, I need that.
Right.
I think what happened is I got really spoiled over the last 5 years or so, because I'd get all the import lists lots of import lists, and there would be thousands of fish, and I would just look them up, and anything that I thought was interesting, I would just bring in. So I'm like, okay, now, unfortunately, sometimes you lose some fish, and, you're like, well, I brought these in, they were really cool, and 0 survived. But for the most part, I'm like, everything I've thought was awesome on these lists, and there would be some really unusual fish on some of these lists. I'm like, okay, I'll bring in these weird gobies and that kind of thing, but I really can't think of something that is like, wow, I need that, and I've never had it. At this point, unless it's a really huge fish, I just go get it. So
Right. Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I think I've talked about this before, but I can tell you one that has eluded me that I've always wanted. And our friend Ben Ochart has one right now, and it infuriates me because I want one so bad. It's the Champsochromis caeruleus trout cichlid male.
yeah.
I have owned several trout cichlids. Never had one that turned out to be a male. They are very, very late bloomers. They can be like 8 inches before they start showing any kind of color or anything like that. And so I've bought them all. I've had them probably 3 or 4 times, and they've all turned out to be females. You know, the person that sells them to me is like, oh, this is a male, I guarantee it. And they all turn out to be females. It's just not the same. I mean, it's a cool looking fish, a female trout cichlid, but they're nothing like the males. I'm getting ready. I've been saying this for months, but I'm getting ready to convert my 240-gallon saltwater tank into freshwater solely for the purpose of putting larger haps in it. And that's really the only one I care about. Like I want to get one of those so bad. It's just been one of those that I've never had. They're out there. It's just a matter of finding one that's actually a male, and then being able to keep conditions right long enough for them to mature enough to show those colors. But there's not a prettier African cichlid than the trout cichlid, a male, when it's full bloom. Unbelievable.
Well, maybe what you have to do is buy 6 or 8 of them, small, and have the patience to grow them up over the course of a few years.
You know, I already know what my strategy is. You've heard of Ron's cichlids, I'm sure. We went there, Lisa and I, we went there last year. Ron's son, Hunter, is the one running the breeding operation. Lucky Ron. He's got a freaking savant running the place. And he had a tank full of, I call them champs. I mean, everybody else calls them trouts. I've always called them champs. He had a tank full of them. And like I said, he is a savant. Like, this kid is one of the smartest African cichlid people I've ever met. And the tank had no lights on. It was up high, and he was looking at it, and I was telling him, I was like, dude, I'm going to want to get one of those from you, but I'm really going to want to make sure it's a male. And he's like, oh, no problem. I got you. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard that before. And he's like, no, look at this tank. And we're talking fish that are like 4 inches. And about champs, it takes them forever to show color. He's looking at that tank, and he's like, there's one. You see the thing, and with the thing and the flip and the fin and I'm like, no, I don't see that at all. And he's like, well, there it is. And so he knows. And I have confidence in him that if I order one from him, I'll actually be getting a male. And I said, this was, I think, November of last year. I said, when you get that one male that's just blowing your mind, save that one for me, whatever it costs. Because I wanted one for so long, and I know he's not going to rake me over the coals. I'm like, whatever it costs, I want that one. So I will have one eventually. Thankfully, they're not on a list of fish I'm not allowed to keep.
Not yet.
Exactly. That'll be a day to celebrate for me, because I've always loved that fish.
No, that's awesome. That is very cool. Well, have we sufficiently covered our 2 fish that we're never going to have?
I believe so. I mean, it's very sad. It's funny, but also sad when you say that, because it's like, man, I'm 51. Like, I'm on the downslope here. Like, time's running out. My mom's going to turn 80 next month, so there's hope I'm still going to be around here for another 30 years. But, oh, geez. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see it in my lifetime, and that makes me very, very sad. But if there's a way to do it, I want to try.
I hear you, man. I hear you. So here's what we want. We want from you, is there a bucket list fish? Is there a fish that you love, but you just know it's not in the cards? You're probably never going to have that particular fish. Leave that in the comment section below, because we read them. We read them. That's why, we put the little hearts on there. That's not just a thing where we go, pow, 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 pow. That's just say, hey, we read the comment. We know it's there. We respond to as many as we can. So we want to hear from you. What's your bucket list fish? What's the one you haven't had that you want to have? What's the one that you haven't had that you probably never have? And then you can join our sad little club of fish keeping fails.
Dreamers.
That would be, yeah. So as always, thank you for being here, hanging out with us this week. We will be back same time, same place next week. Have a great week, everyone.